Hey there, welcome to today's Academy lesson on the Tenkai palm. Now, the Tenkai palm is one of my favorite palms just because it's one of those palms that people tend to overlook when it comes to palming cards. Usually you want a full palm or even something like a lateral palm, which is very common with deals like the snap deal and things like that. But the Tenkai palm is in this weird area that it's between card manipulation and it's between actual magic in itself, because most people know it as a card manipulation move where you're able to take a card and apparently make it disappear as you throw it up, and then you're able to grab it from the air again. Now let me do that again. There you go. Now the reason people tend to link it that way is because you tend to see it when it comes to card manipulation productions done in this sort of way where you're producing cards like this. And you typically see that done by people on stage. Now, there are a bunch of close-up applications when it comes to the Tenkai, and it's one of those palms that heavily favors people with the small hands, because you're able to do the palm without necessarily having to cover a card with your entire palm. So that is one of the benefits of the Tenkai palm. So today what I thought I'd do is that I'd show you guys not only the Tenkai palm, but how to get into, how to get out of the Tenkai palm, as well as how to use it for a couple controls and a couple applications when it comes to close-up magic. So the Tenkai palm, for those of you guys that are unaware, is named after the famous magician Tenkai. If you didn't figure that out, Dai Vernon, as a matter of fact, was a huge fan of Tenkai's work. You might know him if you're familiar with the Tenkai reversal, and this is the Tenkai palm. So what this palm does is that you are essentially going to hold the cards in this position. Notice my fingertips are in the opposite non-pip corner. So that's the first step. Now what's going to happen is that you're going to essentially pivot this card using the middle finger towards your palm. That's the first step of this palm. So it's just going to be pushed just this way. So notice that the finger is moving forward and the middle finger is doing all the pivoting here. So the forefinger is just bracing the card on the upper right corner. So that's the first step. The next step is you are going to make contact with your actual palm. Now the reason you're going to do this is because that's going to ensure that the card is parallel to the ground. Now if you do this where the card is not parallel to the ground, you're going to notice that card is going to flash. So it needs to be parallel with the ground. Now here is where you regrip, because your thumb is actually going to come over and pinch itself or almost hold itself on the upper left corner. So the end position of the palm is with this pipped corner against the palm and the thumb against the upper left corner. So you notice that when this is held like this, it's very obvious what's going on. Also notice that there is this sort of bend which flows with the thumb. The reason for this is because this is going to hide the palm better. If it was convex, there's more of a likelihood that you might see it through there. And especially if you have a higher palm. Some people like to have the card palmed all the way back here. Some people like to have the card palmed closer to the edge of the fingertips. And if you notice, if you have a little bit of a convex sort of bend, they might flash through the fingertips. So ultimately, you're holding the cards in a non-pip corner. You're going to bend the cards towards your palm. You're going to regrip with your thumb on the upper left corner. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the corner as long as it's on this upper edge. And that's what's going to hold the card against your palm. So this is the Tenkai palm. And you notice that my hands are very open. So these fingers are very, very open. However, you don't want to mistake that for being too open, because that's when you flash the actual move. So the angles are going to be very, very sensitive. And it's going to be very important that your hand and the card stays parallel to the ground. The reason for this is because if you move your thumb up, there's going to be flashing in behind the thumb base here. If you move the hand down, there's going to be flashing down here. So it's very important that this card stays parallel to the floor. So that's going to be the angles for this. You want to make sure that that card stays parallel and that your wrist also stays parallel to the ground. If your wrist moves up, you're going to flash that way. If your wrist moves this way, you're going to flash there. So once again, that's the position that you want to be in for this particular move. Now notice if you add a little bit of a throwing action to this particular move, it just looks like you're throwing the card away and it disappears. Now a good little subtlety that I've learned over the years is you want to pinch here with your middle finger. So notice that I can pinch with my middle finger and I could actually let go with my thumb. So I could show my thumb to be empty and have a little bit more freedom with the hand. So notice that if I make this vanish and my thumb looks like it's gone, there's a little bit of a suspicious activity there. However, if I grip with my middle finger and raise my thumb up, you notice that there's a little bit more of a movement here. So it doesn't look like I'm holding anything in my palm. So that's just a little tip I've picked up over the years. So one more time, that's just done by bringing your middle finger down, gripping on the non-pip corner, and letting go with the thumb. So now it's in this actual lateral palm position. So that's known as a lateral palm, which we're going to cover in a future episode of the Academy. So that just gives a little bit of freedom with the hands. So one more time, if you give a little bit of a tossing motion, it actually looks like that card goes off and disappears as you throw it. Next thing, to regrip the card, if you want to produce it, you have a couple different ways of producing it. One way is the card manipulation production, which looks a little bit like that. So you're able to apparently flick that card into existence just like this. If you want, you could even have a little bit of an angle, so it's produced that way. Now, the way that's done is we're actually going to move from this concave position to this convex position. And the way we do that is just by moving the card that way. So I'm going to just use the fingertip to allow that card to become convex. Now, what's going to happen is that I'm going to pinch the corner, much like I did before with my middle finger. However, this time I'm going to let go with my thumb, because that's going to allow me to pinch between my thumb and the middle finger. It's going to allow me to pinch that upper left corner, which if I let go of the card with my palm, you notice that that card is going to pop itself into existence. So one more time, if you want to produce it this way, you're going to have to bend the card convex like this. You're going to bring your middle finger in just like this. You're going to regrip with your thumb. So now it's being pinched like this. And then now when I let go and release the card from my palm, that card is just going to produce itself. That's one way to produce the card. Apparently at the fingertips. It's a very, very pretty production. And the next way is through the fingers, just like this. So the way that works is once again, I'm going to come in with these two fingers. So my forefinger is going to come above the card. My middle finger is going to go below the card. And I'm just going to let go of the thumb and pull my fingers up just like that. So what that does is that it produces the card apparently at the fingertips, and it adds a nice little bit of a pretty production move to the actual Tenkai palm itself. So at speed, it just looks like you're throwing the card away, and to regrip it, you could take it like that, or you could throw it and produce it at the fingertips. So it's a very nice, very sort of card manipulation production for a single card. Now, I mentioned that this does have applications in close-up magic. So this is one. Let's say you want to control the card to the top of the deck. You could grab half the deck, put it on a table, place this card apparently on this half, regrip the deck, maybe dribble them on top of that half, and in that action, you've controlled the card directly to the top of the deck. So of course, that goes without saying that you were just simply placing this card in Tenkai palm as I'm placing it supposedly on this half. So again, instead of placing it on the half, I'm just going to put the card in Tenkai palm. Remember, this deck is in the left hand. So now when I grab the deck to square it up, I'm just going to leave that card and square it up with the rest of the deck as I place it on top, or if I want, I could even dribble the cards on top just to show freedom. So at speed, it's a very pretty move. It just looks like you're placing the card in the middle of the deck and squaring it up. Now, that was a little bit of a hot tip that I did not mention, which does add to the credibility of you actually depositing the card. So what I did there is that instead of just placing the card directly in Tenkai, I actually used my middle finger to push this card forward, which gives the illusion that there's movement and therefore that you've placed the card down. Because imagine if you just place the card down, it wouldn't be as square as it is. There would be a little bit of action. So that's just a little bit of a subtlety you could use and a convincer to further reiterate this point that you actually left the card there. So one more time, I'm just coming in with the card in Tenkai, leaving it on top of the deck as I square it up. And at this point, I could dribble the cards on the table, and I'm very, very clean. However, I've left that card on top of the deck. So at speed, it should just look like you're taking the card, putting it on top of the deck, squaring up that half, dropping it, and now that card is controlled directly to the top of the deck. So another way of doing it on a table is instead of doing it on a packet of cards, you could do it on a spread. So let's say you want to take this card, supposedly the queen, you want to leave it in the middle. You want to spread that card and show that it's very cleanly in the middle. It's the same exact thing. Now the queen is on top of the deck. So for this, instead of just leaving it as a packet on the table, you spread the cards. So you take half of the deck and you spread it on the table. You grab the card that's going to be controlled and you're going to do the exact same action as before. You're just going to leave it and push off with your middle finger, giving the illusion that that's the card. You're going to come up, square up that card with the deck as you spread the rest of the half on the table. And now when you pick up the deck, the illusion is perfect that that card's going in the middle of the deck. However, it's really going on top. So it's a beautiful little convincing move. One more time. This time we're going to take this add card, leave it in the middle. And of course, in that action, we get squared up very cleanly and have that card come directly to the top of the deck. Now, it is possible to do this move in a stand-up situation as follows. You could just take the top card, in this case, the add card, leave it on top of the deck as you cut it directly somewhere in the middle of the deck. preferably never to be seen again. Of course, in that action, it's controlled right to the top of the deck. This is, again, simplicity itself. We're just going to take the card and put it into Tenkai. Give the deck one-handed cut. A simple one-handed cut, which gives the illusion that that card is somewhere in the middle. And of course, that should stagger the deck a little bit, which is your motivation to come in with the right hand and square up the cards. So let me leave that card face up so you see what's going on. Cards going supposedly on top of the deck, giving the deck a single cut, squaring the cards up, and maybe giving it a dribble, and that card is on top of the deck. So at speed, it should just look like this. And that's it. The card is on top of the deck. Another way of doing it is a little bit more of a complex move. However, it still looks very, very convincing. This time, let's use a different card here. So for this, we're going to take the Ace of Spades and supposedly put it in the middle of the deck. Of course, in that action, that card has been stolen out. Now, this is, again, a little bit more of a complicated move, but it's still relatively easy to get. So what's going to happen is that you're going to break up half the deck just like this. You're going to prepare to put the Ace of Spades in Tenkai palm. However, the illusion here is that you're putting it in the middle of this gap. Really, you're just putting the card into Tenkai palm. Now, it's important that you do this above the deck so that it doesn't trap the ace in the middle of the deck and you have to steal the card out that way. So you're doing this above the deck, putting the card into Tenkai palm, and with your middle finger, you're just going to use your middle finger to grip on this card just like this and up jog the card. So that the illusion is that this is supposedly the Ace of Spades. So at speed, you're just going to take the Ace of Spades, put it in Tenkai, use your middle finger to extend that card from the middle. Now you could square it up, supposedly being the ace. However, that card is in Tenkai palm. So you're more than welcome to come in, square up the deck, give it a dribble, and put that card on top of the deck. Or you could just keep that card in the Tenkai palm and produce it in whichever way you want. So at speed, the move should just look like you're putting that card in the middle of the deck, squaring it up, and maybe launching it to the other hand. So those are just a couple different ways of controlling the card using the Tenkai palm in a stand-up situation. So as you can see, the Tenkai palm is a very, very versatile move. I would say it's very underrated in the world of Magic, and a lot of people tend to dismiss it because of the angles. However, the card is only ever in Tenkai palm for a couple seconds at most. So you're never going to be holding the card out in Tenkai palm. Rarely are you going to be doing that. So more likely than not, the card's going to be held in Tenkai palm just temporarily as your attention is somewhere else. So that shouldn't be something you worry about. But you see the efficiency of the move as well as its ability to kind of convey this openness that you can't do with a full palm because of the nature of the palm itself. What I like about the Tenkai is that your fingers are open and therefore giving more of an impression that your hands are empty. So it's a wonderful, wonderful move and one of my favorites, that's for sure. In a future episode, I'm going to cover other palms and other unconventional palms. This was just a little bit of an introductory look at the Tenkai palm. So thank you guys for being piggybackers, and I hope to see you on the next lesson.